Now, formally defining slope, if you have some sort of a linear surface, you can find the slope of that surface by choosing a couple of points on that surface. So if I choose, let's say, these couple of points, and then you find the rise and the run between those 2 points. So we define the rise between those 2 points to be the vertical distance between the 2 points, and then we define this right here to be the run, the horizontal distance between those 2 points. And so what we'll define slope to be is slope is going to be the ratio of that amount of rise to that amount of run. So sometimes people will refer to that as the amount of vertical change in distance between the 2 points over the horizontal distance in change between those 2 particular points. Now, slope we often represent with a particular kind of variable, which often is m. So you'll want to get used to seeing that, since that's kind of a frequent go-to in terms of how we represent slope. So in an example here, to comply with the American in Disabilities Act requirements, it turns out that wheelchair ramps need to have a maximum slope of 1 to 12. So that is expressed as a ratio right there. So that's the same thing as 1 over 12. And so if we know that that's a slope, then this should correspond to the fact that you should have 1 unit of rise for every 12 units of run. And that's the maximum that the slope could be. So it needs to be underneath that and be less steep then, because you don't want it to be too steep. So if we suppose this porch is 20 inches above the ground level, then how far along the ground must the ramp be constructed? So based on our diagram right here, we're seeing that the porch is 20 inches above ground level, so that's going to correspond to the fact that right here, this is going to be 20 inches high. And what we're wanting to know is how far along the ground must the ramp be constructed. So we want to go out, and see how far we want to go out in that particular regard. And so just using this idea that, well, if the rise, for every 1 unit of rise, there should be 12 units of run, then since we've got 20 inches and that's corresponding to rise, then 12 times that should be the amount of run that we could go out to. So if we did do 20 times 12, this is going to be equal to 240 inches. So we would be able to go out 240 inches there. And then thinking about, well, then if that's going to give us an exact slope of 1 over 12, then are we allowed to go to 239 or 241? Which side of that? And it turns out that you'd want to go 240 or more, so that if you go out further, it actually makes the ramp less steep. Otherwise, if you go to 239 and below, the ramp becomes too steep and actually has a slope that is greater than 1/12, which we wouldn't want to have.